The bright morning sun hung over the small town of Redstone as people hurried through their daily routines, unaware that one man's life was about to be shattered for the second time. Ethan Mercer stood in front of his modest auto repair garage, staring at the official notice taped to the metal door. His hands trembled as he read the words again and again, hoping they would somehow change. The property had been repossessed. Everything he had worked for during the last 7 years was gone. The garage wasn't just a business. It was his survival. It was the promise he had made to his late wife before she passed away from a sudden illness. It was the place where he raised his daughter, Sophie. It was where he spent countless nights fixing engines while she slept on an old couch in the office. And now it was being taken away. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of never giving up, please like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire for more inspiring stories that touch the heart. Ethan was 39 years old, but the stress of life had added years to his face. His dark brown hair showed streaks of gray, and the lines around his eyes spoke of countless sleepless nights. Still, every morning he woke before sunrise, prepared breakfast for 12-year-old Sophie, and headed to work determined to build a better future. When his wife Ava died 5 years earlier, many people expected him to fall apart. For a while, he almost did. Medical bills had drained their savings. The mortgage payments piled up. Customers became fewer. Some months he barely earned enough to keep the lights on. Yet somehow, Ethan kept going. He never missed Sophie's school events. He never let her see how often he skipped meals so she could eat better food. He never complained. But the economy had become difficult. Several major repair contracts disappeared. A predatory lender acquired the loan attached to his property and quickly demanded payments Ethan simply couldn't meet. Now the garage was gone. The repossession team arrived shortly before noon. They changed the locks. They inventoried the equipment. They treated the building like another asset on a spreadsheet. Ethan watched silently. Sophie stood beside him holding his hand. Neither of them cried. Sometimes pain becomes so large that tears aren't enough. The following week was one of the hardest periods of Ethan's life. Without the garage, he lost most of his customers. Without customers, he had almost no income. Bills continued arriving. Meanwhile, Sophie tried her best to stay positive, but Ethan noticed the sadness behind her smile. One afternoon she quietly asked if they would have to move. Ethan didn't know how to answer. For the first time in years, he truly felt defeated. Still, every morning he got up and searched for work. He repaired lawn mowers. He fixed generators. He worked from a small rented storage unit that barely had enough room for tools. People told him to give up. Many suggested he leave town and start over somewhere else. But Ethan couldn't abandon the community that had supported his family for years. Then, on a warm Thursday morning, something unexpected happened. The town buzzed with excitement. A massive security company called Titan Shield had arrived to demonstrate its newest armored transport vehicle. The truck was worth nearly $2 million. It represented cutting-edge engineering. The company planned to showcase it before local officials, investors, and media representatives. The event was designed to impress everyone. Instead, it became a disaster. Hundreds of people gathered near the town square under clear blue skies. The enormous armored truck gleamed in the sunlight. Company executives proudly discussed advanced systems, reinforced components, and revolutionary technology. Then they attempted the demonstration. The truck wouldn't start. At first, nobody worried. A technician checked a monitor. Another connected a diagnostic computer. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. The crowd began whispering. Executives forced nervous smiles. More technicians arrived. They inspected wires. They examined sensors. They replaced modules. The truck remained completely dead. Hours passed. The atmosphere shifted from confidence to embarrassment. By early afternoon, the expensive machine still sat motionless in the center of town. Investors looked frustrated. Reporters started asking difficult questions. The company's reputation hung in the balance. A senior engineer was flown in from another city. He examined the truck for nearly 2 hours. Nothing. Another specialist arrived. Still nothing. The vehicle remained silent. As the sun climbed higher, frustration spread across the demonstration site. No one could understand how a machine worth $2 million could suddenly stop functioning. Meanwhile, Ethan happened to be nearby delivering repaired equipment to a customer. He noticed the commotion. Curious, he watched from a distance. Years of experience had taught him to recognize certain patterns. Something about the situation seemed strange. The technicians appeared focused on complicated systems. Yet Ethan sensed the problem might be much simpler. He didn't intend to get involved. After all, nobody had asked for his help. And honestly, he wasn't in the mood. His own life was falling apart. But fate had other plans. As he turned to leave, one frustrated employee kicked a tire and muttered that they had checked everything. Everything. Those words caught Ethan's attention. Because in his experience, when people claim they've checked everything, they've usually overlooked the most obvious thing. He approached carefully. A security guard initially stopped him. His worn work clothes and old pickup truck didn't exactly inspire confidence. But after several hours of failure, desperation had begun replacing pride. Eventually, one executive allowed Ethan a brief look. The engineers exchanged skeptical glances. Some smirked. What could a struggling local mechanic possibly know that highly paid specialists didn't? Ethan ignored them. He climbed into the driver's area. He listened. He observed. He checked a few basic systems. Then he asked a question nobody else had asked. Had anyone inspected the emergency power isolation circuit? Several technicians exchanged confused looks. One admitted they assumed it couldn't be the issue because the diagnostic software showed no fault. Ethan nodded slowly. Assumptions. They were often more dangerous than broken parts. For the next 15 minutes, he examined a small compartment hidden behind an access panel. Then he found it. A tiny damaged connection inside a safety relay assembly. The failure interrupted power flow to critical startup systems. The issue was so small it seemed impossible. Yet it was enough to disable the entire vehicle. Ethan carefully repaired the connection. He stepped back. The crowd watched. The executives watched. The engineers watched. Everyone watched. Then Ethan turned the key. The massive engine roared to life instantly. The sound echoed through the square. For a moment, absolute silence filled the air. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then the crowd erupted. Applause thundered across the square. People cheered. Reporters rushed forward. The executives stared in disbelief. The specialists who had spent hours searching for the problem couldn't hide their shock. A single local father had solved in minutes what an entire team of experts couldn't. News of the incident spread rapidly. But what happened next changed Ethan's life forever. The CEO of Titan Shield reviewed the entire situation personally. He learned about Ethan's background. He learned about the garage. He learned about the repossession. He learned about the years Ethan had spent supporting his daughter alone. Most importantly, he learned about Ethan's reputation. Every customer described the same man. Honest. Hardworking. Reliable. The kind of person who fixed problems without seeking attention. 3 days later, Ethan received an unexpected phone call. The company wanted to meet him. When he arrived, he expected a simple thank you. Instead, he received something he never imagined. Titan Shield offered him a senior mechanical consulting position. The salary was more money than he had ever earned. But that wasn't all. The company had another proposal. They wanted to help him reopen his garage as an official regional service partner. The very garage that had been repossessed. The executives had negotiated with the property's new owners. They arranged financing. They invested in new equipment. They gave Ethan the opportunity to rebuild everything he had lost. For several moments, he couldn't speak. Years of struggle seemed to crash into a single overwhelming wave of emotion. When he finally returned home and told Sophie, she burst into tears and wrapped her arms around him. They cried together in the kitchen. Not because life was perfect. Not because every problem disappeared. But because hope had finally returned. Months later, the garage stood open once again. Fresh paint covered the walls. New equipment filled the workspace. Customers returned. Business grew steadily. The building buzzed with life. Yet Ethan never forgot where he came from. He hired struggling workers. He trained young apprentices. He helped families facing difficult times. Every person who entered his garage was treated with respect. Because he understood what it felt like to lose everything. And he understood how powerful a second chance could be. Now, before we reach the end of this story, we'd love to hear from you. If this story has touched your heart in any way, please like the video, leave a comment, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to people around the world. Special request: comment below with the words, "Never give up," if you believe that one act of persistence can change an entire life. Years later, visitors to Redstone still talked about the day a $2 million armored truck refused to move. Most people remembered the technical failure. But those who knew the full story remembered something far more important. They remembered a father who refused to quit. A man who lost everything and still kept showing up. A mechanic who wasn't looking for recognition. A parent who kept fighting for his daughter when life gave him every reason to surrender. Because sometimes the greatest miracles don't arrive with flashing lights or dramatic announcements. Sometimes they arrive quietly. In the form of one more attempt. One more day. One more act of courage. And sometimes, when the world believes you're finished, life gives you a chance to prove that your story is only beginning. That bright morning when Ethan lost his garage felt like the end of everything. But it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the chapter that would change his life forever. And perhaps that's the lesson hidden inside every hardship. The door that closes may be preparing you for the one that's about to open. All you have to do is keep walking forward until you find it.